All right, so we should now be live. Thank you to everybody that's currently in the room. My name is Josh Amster, and I am the Director of Business Development at StartEngine. Today, we will be having a live webinar regarding our platform, the regulations, and how companies are able to take advantage of these regulations to raise capital for their business. So I hope it is educational for you all. Quick note before we get started, if you have any questions that pop up during the presentation, please jot those questions down in the comment section that you should see on the right-hand side of your page. We're going to be noting all of those questions throughout the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll then go back and I'll address all of those questions that came up during the presentation. So again, please make sure to type those questions in. I'll try to remind you as well as we're going through to continually add questions, and then we'll address those questions at the end of the presentation today. So great, so why don't we go ahead and then get started. So like I mentioned, today really is going to hopefully be an educational presentation regarding StartEngine, equity crowdfunding, the regulations, and how you as entrepreneurs can take advantage of these rules to raise capital for your company. So that's what we'll do. As you see here on this first slide, it's really everything you need to know about online public offerings. You're going to hear me talk about online public offerings, or OPOs, throughout the entire presentation. It's a term that we coined. And it really is also, equity crowdfunding, online public offerings, OPOs, all meaning the same thing, but just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of that before we get started. So StartEngine is what's commonly referred to as an equity crowdfunding platform. And it is our mission here to help entrepreneurs achieve their dreams. And we do that by providing a platform to you all to be able to access, and then for you to take advantage of and raise capital for your companies. And everyone here at our team is devoted to this mission, and we really are all big-time believers in democratizing capital for everybody, both on the entrepreneur side and the investment side. And it's a young, exciting, vibrant team of about 20 people or so right now at the company, and we're growing month to month as well, which is really exciting. But we are here and we're dedicated to helping you entrepreneurs achieve your dreams for your companies. So a brief history on how we got here. It all started in April of 2012 when President Obama administration signed the Jobs Act into effect. This is the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act. And there were several different exemptions included in this Jobs Act. We're going to focus on just a couple of them today. But what it really was, put in place to do was to make give entrepreneurs and small businesses more access to capital in an easier, more efficient manner. And so this legislation, as I mentioned, was signed into law in April of 2012. In June of 2015 is when StartEngine, the equity crowdfunding platform, came into existence. And we launched our platform the same day that the large online public offering, or large OPO rule, came into effect. And our first company that we went live with was a company named Elio Motors, which you'll see right here on the second spot. Elio Motors is a three-wheeled vehicle, and they used the large OPO rule to raise nearly $17 million from 6,300 unique investors. So it was really a groundbreaking success. To date, it's one of the most successful raises in that large OPO rule, and it really put us on the map and in a leadership position in this space. So their raise concluded in February of 2016. And at that point, StartEngine was really looked at as the leaders in equity crowdfunding. We had the biggest, most successful raise to date, the first one of its kind. And since then, we've carried that momentum on to do continually great things over the next year plus. So the third milestone moment is May of 2016. May of 2016 is when the small online public offering or small OPO rule came into effect. And this rule allows companies to raise up to $1 million in a 12-month period from the general public. I'll be going into more details on the small OPO and the large OPO, but just wanted to give you sort of an overview on how this all unfolded. And then just, most recently in October of 2017, the, online public offering industry as a whole has raised over $1 billion in capital for companies. And we've noticed through our StartEngine index, which we create on a monthly basis, that the industry as a whole is growing 20% month to month. So really seeing tremendous things. A lot of entrepreneurs and companies are taking advantage of these rules and exemptions. And the industry as a whole is just really starting to take off, and we're really excited about where things are headed. So right now, if you go to our website, StartEngine.com, you'll see that these are the three most popular raises at the moment. There's a Rayton Solar, a solar energy company. You'll see StartEngine actually. So we launched our own large OPO rule just a couple weeks ago now, and we've raised over $1 million thus far. So we're really excited with how that's going. And then you'll see a medical marijuana pesticide company as well on there. So it just shows you a diverse group of companies that are on here raising capital, and those some of the most successful raises that are on our platform today. As you can see, over $8 million or so raised amongst these three companies combined. I also have some of our recently launched companies. So as you'll see, they're just getting started. Some of these just launched yesterday or the day before. And what we're seeing are incredible numbers when it comes to launching new companies on a month-to-month basis. Just last month alone in October, I know we're just November 2nd now, but in October, we had a record number of launches in a month. We launched 21 companies. And before that, we were launching about 15 companies a month. So really seeing incredible traction and a lot of people now swarming into this industry as they realize the efficiency and just how great this can be for their businesses to get access to capital. What we do as a platform is, we do a lot of things, but one of the things that we really focus on is just trying to have a very straightforward investing process for the general public, so that when they come to your offering, it's seamless, it's easy, and there's really no friction between them saying, yes, I want to invest, to then ultimately completing their investment. It's really just a pretty simple process. It's a four-step process, if you will. The first step is they open your campaign page. So they see something that strikes their interest and they just open that page. They'll watch the video, read a story, and look up the terms to see if it's a company that they're really excited about and interested in, and if the terms make sense for them to invest. They'll then read the StartEngine Investor Educational Manual to make sure that they are fully aware of what they can and cannot do. There are some investment limitations based on their investor status that they need to be aware of, so they can get all that information directly through the platform itself. And then if they do ultimately want to make the investment, they click the Invest Now button. They fill out the investment page. It's a one-page investment page. And once that's completed, they click Submit, and they've made their investment in your company. So as you can see, it really is a streamlined, straightforward process that we take a lot of pride in, and we really have focused on that to be the most efficient and easy to use platform amongst everybody out there. Some of the momentum that we've seen over, since June of 2015. Well, on the investor side, right now we have a community of over 113,000 investors. That is the largest community amongst all competitors in our space. And it makes sense based on us being in the space from the very beginning, June of 2015, and also having the largest raises as well in these spaces. So right now we have over 113,000 people in our community. And what we're seeing is that on average, our community makes up about 30% of the investors in any given raise. So our community is bringing in a nice chunk of people into each offering. But in order for the campaigns to be a big, big success, it requires you guys, the entrepreneurs or the companies, to also market this raise externally to the general public. And it's that combination of you marketing the raise externally, us marketing the raise internally, that leads to a very successful offering. Ultimately, one day we hope that when you launch your campaign on StartEngine, our community, accounts for 100% of your investors. Not there today, but we're striving and hoping to be that one day. But right now, bringing in about 30% is a nice chunk, and we're excited that those numbers are continuing to grow. The average investment on the platform right now is $1,500. That gives you a sense that they're a lot smaller checks to give you to a large sum. So if you're looking to raise around $1 million, you're going to be expecting probably a little bit less than 1,000 investors in your offering to get you to that point. And so far, 15% of our investors are repeat investors, meaning that while they initially came to StartEngine to invest maybe in Golfboard or Saunders, they now are coming back and investing in more companies and other companies, and they're seeing our emails, they're reading through the offerings, and we're seeing great activity amongst these people as well. So that number is also continuing to grow. So we're very, very excited about our community, and they're very, very interested in investing in early stage startup businesses. Regarding the raises, we've raised over $43 million for over 75 companies thus far. The average raise for the large OPO is $4.75 million. The average raise for the small OPO is just under $390,000. And the success rate right now is around 68%. Now, it's really important for me to explain what that means when I say success. So when I say success, it doesn't necessarily mean that they raise their maximum amount that they want to get. What it means is that they've raised enough capital that it warrants them closing on those funds. So for example, if a company sets a maximum of $1 million and they only raise $500,000, well, if they decide that they want to close on that $500,000, then that is determined a success. And with that in mind, 68% of the companies are successful that raise on StartEngine. And then, like I mentioned, some of the momentum, we launched 21 companies in October, which is our biggest month to date. We're really excited about that, and we're hoping to expand on that in November. And then also StartEngine Secondary. So this is our secondary trading platform. And as we'll get into more details here, you'll notice that the shares that these investors purchase are freely tradable, either immediately after the offering or after 1 year restriction. And at that point, the investors can trade their securities through StartEngine Secondary. So they can go on our secondary platform, list their shares for sale, and if someone sees them and wants to purchase them, they can do so directly through that platform. So it provides that liquidity for the investors, which is really important in a situation like this. So we're very, very excited about that, have big hopes and aspirations of what that will bring to the company and to all of you as well and the investors. And it just launched about a month or so ago. So now the OPOs, the online public offerings, what are you talking about, Josh, when you mention these? That's what we're going to get into right now, and I'm going to go into a more detailed discussion on each rule that the companies are using to raise the capital. The first one I'll go into is the small OPO, small online public offering regulation, crowdfunding, Reg CF, all the same thing. And this is by far and away the most popular piece of legislation that entrepreneurs are using to raise capital. And there's several reasons why. First, you can raise up to $1.07 million in a 12-month period from the general public. So both accredited and also non-accredited investors can invest in these types of raises. And what makes it so attractive, this rule, is that you, the company, do not need to be qualified by the SEC in order to sell securities. All that you need to do is file a Form C document, which StartEngine will file on your behalf. And once that document has been filed, then you can start raising capital immediately from the general public. There's no review of the document. There's no back and forth between the SEC and you. It's just you filed, or StartEngine files that Form C on your behalf, and once it's filed, the offering is live and starting to accept investments. So what we're seeing right now is that on average, it's taking about companies 3 to 6 weeks or so to get their offering prepared. And once it's prepared, then they're going live with their raise. And the raises are typically running for about 60 to 90 days is what we see on average. So in total, the process is about 3 to 4 months. So it can be done in a very timely manner. Regarding that Form C, what it includes are some basic legal disclosures regarding risks, descriptions of the business, terms, basically, anything that an investor should be aware of regarding the company will be included in this Form C. In addition, there are financial requirements. So the financials will need to look at the past 2 completed fiscal years. If you haven't been around for 2 years, then it's just since inception. And then depending on how much you're looking to raise will determine if you, the company, needs to have an independent CPA review those financials, or if you, the principal of the company, can just self-verify the financials. And that, that threshold of what determines this is $107,000. So if you have a maximum raise of over $107,000, then you need to have an independent CPA review your financials. If you have a maximum goal of $107,000 or less, then you, as the principal of the company, can self-verify the financials. Now, what a lot of companies are doing to avoid the initial upfront costs of getting an independent CPA review done is they're setting their maximum raise to be $107,000 to begin with. And then once they approach that number or potentially even exceed it, they're closing on some of the funds that have come in, they're hiring a CPA, getting the review done, and then once the review is done, they're posting that to their page and simultaneously increasing their maximum to as much as $1.07 million. So you have options of which you prefer to do. You can either set your maximum to be $1.07 million from the start, and then you need to have a CPA review and incur that upfront cost, or you can have the maximum be $107K, you self-verify the financials, and then once it's appropriate to do so, then you pay for that CPA review cost and simultaneously increase your maximum amount. That might be a little confusing, so if there are any questions about that, please again address that in the comment section, and I'll happily answer those at the end of the presentation. A couple other things regarding the small OPO rule is you cannot solicit investors until your offering is live. So unlike a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign where you can start talking about, we're going to be raising money for our product, we're going to be going live on November 1st, give me your emails and information, and then the day we go live, I'll send you the link and you guys can donate to our cause. That's not permitted under this rule. So you actually can't start any marketing or discussing this raise at all until your offering is live on StartEngine. That Form C document is filed. The last thing here is that the shares are tradable under this regulation after 1 year. So there is a 1-year restriction on transfer of securities, but after that year has expired, then these securities are freely tradable and they can be traded on a secondary trading platform like StartEngine Secondary. So some of the costs that are associated with the small OPO raise, I break it up into upfront, back-end costs. So the upfront cost, again, if you set your maximum raise to be $107,000 or less, you're looking at no upfront costs. Versus if you set a maximum to be of above 107 all the way up to 1.07 million, you're probably looking at anywhere between $4,000 to $10,000 in both legal and accounting costs. So StartEngine does require an attorney of record for any raises over 107,000. So you'll need to have a security attorney or somebody sign off on your offering document. So that combined with the financial review, you're looking at a cost of anywhere between $4,000 to $10,000. Now, StartEngine does have plenty of relationships with vendors that have experience in this space, doing the financial reviews, getting the legal disclosures done for the Form C. So should you need any introductions to people, we have plenty of vendors that we can introduce to you. The post-raise fees. So StartEngine, we take 6% of the total amount raised. So to be very clear on this, if you raise $1 million and all of your investors are domestic investors, then StartEngine will take $60,000 in that raise. Now, This includes also all of the escrow fees for the offering. So there are no additional escrow fees. It's 6% all in right there. Now, there are some optional add-ons. Number one is that if you decide to accept international investors, which is your choice as the company, then for those international investors exclusively, we'll take 8% of that investment. And the reason being is that the escrow fees for international investors are significantly more expensive. That's why there's that 2% difference. Lastly, for credit card investments. So StartEngine was the first platform that allowed for investors to invest using a credit or debit card. So a really groundbreaking, step and movement for this industry, as it is definitely a much easier way for people to invest. Before credit cards, everyone was investing either via ACH or wire transfer. But now that we have credit card and debit cards, it's making it a lot easier for the general public to invest. If an investor invests via credit card, it adds 4% to the 6 or 8%. So the 6 will jump to 10% and the 8 will jump to 12%. Again, those are exclusively on credit card investments. So if they invest via an ACH, there is no additional 4%, but that is there as an option, and we've seen it obviously to be a very favorable way for the public to invest in these offerings. Lastly, StartEngine Premium. This is a service that we offer to companies. It is a $5,000 upfront fee, and I'll be going into more detail on what this includes, but from a high level, basically what it includes is, number one, we will build your company's campaign page for you. So that landing page that has the story, the visuals, we'll actually put that entire offering page together on your behalf. We cannot put together your legal and financial information. We're not allowed to do that. We can obviously help you through those processes, but we're actually not able to handle that and put it together. But we will put together your physical page that people land on when they come to your offering. In addition, and probably more importantly in my opinion, is you will have your own consultant at StartEngine that will be your point person throughout the entire raise. So this person is going to be able to help service any immediate needs. They're going to help you brainstorm marketing strategies. They're really going to be that care and that contact person that you can reach out to via phone or email at any time to help you through this offering. We realize that this is your first time most likely doing this type of campaign, and you are leaning or going to need help and assistance throughout the entire offering. And that's where that consultant really comes into play. They are experts in this space. They've seen it all. They know what works, what doesn't work. They know how to answer questions. They know how to help you through things and challenges that you face during the campaign. And that's where that, that care and attention will really come. This is as opposed to doing StartEngine Standard, which is completely free. There's no cost of doing that. But you will be using the guides, tools, and tips that we have available on the platform. And you'll have a general support email that you can contact at any time, and you can expect a response within 48 hours of when you send that email. So it's that, point person there that's there for you at any time versus the more do-it-yourself approach and the general email to help you through it. I'll go into more detail later on, but that's basically what the StartEngine Premium entails. So the other two types of offerings that we have on our platform are the select OPOs and the large OPOs. Now, what we've really seen is companies, even if they're looking to raise maybe $5 million or so, they'll start with a small OPO due to how straightforward and quickly they can get up. They'll raise the first million of the small OPO from the general public, and then at that point, they'll either open up a select OPO either immediately after, or they'll then open up a large OPO, maybe a couple months after that. So we see this progression of going from small to select to large, and that's really the ideal, blueprint that we like to follow and suggest to companies when they come to us looking to raise capital. So the select OPO, it is also known as Regulation D 506C, all the same thing. Basically, this is an offering to accredited investors only. You are able to raise as much money as you like under the small OPO. There's no maximum amount. Now, you also cannot solicit investors until this raise is live. So there's no discussions regarding this offering until it's actually up and running. You do not actually need to supply any financials as well in a select OPO, although if an accredited investor is going to make an investment in this type of offering, they're going to request your financials. So what we've seen is that typically the entrepreneurs will just provide the financials for everyone to see, so that they don't need to send these every single time an investor is thinking about investing. It's just readily available to them. There is no SEC qualification needed here. It's just about filing your PPM or having that available. So it's an immediate process. And these shares are tradable after 1 year, only amongst accredited investors. So the transfer of securities is a little bit limited here. But what we've really seen and how we really use this select OPO rule is in combination with a small OPO. So if a company wants to, let's say, raise $2 million, it might not make sense for them to move into the large OPO rule. But what we suggest is to do a small and then a select OPO back to back. So you fill up and hopefully oversubscribe your small OPO offering, meaning that you raise, let's say, $1.5 million under the small OPO rule. Now you're only able to close on 1.07 million in that small OPO offering due to the restriction on the cap. So what we do is we analyze of those investors which one of them are accredited, and if they're accredited, then we try to move them into a select OPO under the same terms. And so then you move those accredited investors into the select OPO, simultaneously allowing the oversubscribed investors that are non-accredited to get into the small OPO. And in combination, we're hoping that between those two offerings, you can raise, $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever it is that you're looking to raise. So that's what we've seen companies do on our platform. Golf Board's a perfect example. I'll go into details in a little bit, but that's what that select OPO rule entails. The third legislation is the large OPO rule. So this is the rule that Elio Motors took advantage of. This is the rule that StartEngine is currently using. Rayton Solar and MedX, those two other companies that were on that first slide that you saw that had over $1 million raised, they're all using the large OPO rule. And this rule allows a private company to raise up to $50 million in a 12-month period from the general public. Now, the big difference here is that the company needs to be qualified by the SEC in order to sell securities. And that qualification period, first off, it costs money and it takes time. So you need to have a 2-year independent CPA audit conducted, or if you haven't been around for 2 years, then since inception. So it's not a review, it's an actual audit of the past 2 years. And then there are pretty extensive legal disclosures in this, what's called a Form 1A. That's the offering document that gets filed and reviewed. This will cost in total, those two things, around probably $50,000 to $100,000, depending on which vendors you're working with to get the audit done and what security attorney you're working to help you get that offering document completed. So there are some significant upfront fees that are required here. In addition, the qualification process, so once this offering document is filed with the SEC, it can take about 3 months to actually be qualified by the SEC. So once you file, then you have to wait about 60 days for comments from the SEC. They'll then give, on that 60th day, they'll give you those comments, and then there's typically a round or two of back and forth before the offering is actually qualified. So as I mentioned, it takes a little bit of time to get qualified. There are some more significant upfront costs, but obviously you can raise up to $50 million under this rule. So that's why we see companies starting with the small and then moving into the large, because they normally don't have that time to wait, and they also don't have the upfront capital necessary to get this all done. Under this rule, you are able to test the waters, and what that means is you can actually talk about your offering and try to solicit investors prior to qualification or even prior to filing with the SEC. The purpose, it's meant to give you an idea of whether or not it'll be worthwhile to then file with the SEC and incur these costs. Now, what we've seen, thus far is that the conversion rates between reservations in the test in the waters period and actual investments is, quite low, and so it can be a little misleading, the test in the waters period. And it's important to understand that in Tesla waters, you're not taking actual investments. You're only taking reservations. These are non-binding indications of interest. So once you then are qualified by the SEC, your reservation holder will need to confirm their reservation and actually then complete their investment. So we've seen companies that have raised $20 million in Tesla waters and say, oh my God, this could be amazing. Then they go through the process, they get live, and they end up raising nowhere near $20 million. So be careful about it. It is available, but just because you raise $20 million doesn't mean you're going to raise in Tesla waters, doesn't mean you're going to raise $20 million in your actual offering. Lastly, these shares are tradable immediately after the offering closes. So unlike the small OPO rule where there's that 1-year restriction, in the large OPO rule, as soon as the offering is closed, the shares do become tradable. So again, if you have any questions on these legislations, please submit them into the comment section and I'll address all those questions again at the end of the presentation. So now we're going to go into a few examples of some campaigns on StartEngine that have taken advantage of these legislations, how they were successful, to give you guys a better idea on how this all looks. The first company is Saunders Electric Car. So Saunders Electric Car, as you also see, was a full-service company, meaning that they did StartEngine Premium, and I was the one that was working directly with Storm Saunders, the CEO of this company, to help him get through everything. And Saunders Electric Car had the dream of building the most attractive, affordable electric car ever. So this was a brand new company when Storm, the CEO, came to us in August of 2016. There was really to the business at all. It was just an idea at this point. He had a track record of building the most attractive, affordable electric bike in the market previously for Saunders Inc., a Saunders electric bike, but now he wanted to build an affordable electric car. And so what he wanted to do was he wanted to raise $1 million, just having the idea, to then go and build the prototype for the vehicle. And he was able to accomplish that. So he incorporated his new company in August of 2016. He went live with his offering, I believe in October of 2016, setting a pre-money valuation of $33 million, which a lot of people will look at that number and their eyes will just open wide up. And it is a pretty staggering number considering this company was just in the idea phase. But Storm Saunders believed that because of the industry he was in, his track record with electric bikes, the partnerships and that he'd already built in the electric transportation space, he thought that a $33 million valuation was completely fair. And the general public agreed because he oversubscribed his offering. Ended up raising about $1.2 million in total for this campaign. Now he was only able to close on $1 million of that due to the cap, but it was a wildly successful offering. And Storm Saunders has now built the prototype. The prototype is complete. It is in the States, and they're actually going to be releasing it in the next few weeks here to everybody. So that's going to be a really exciting moment for all these 1,600 investors to now see this prototype that they helped fund and create. And now he's coming back to our platform to raise some additional capital for the next stage in the development of this company. So really, really exciting campaign. Was the first $1 million raise that we had on StartEngine in the small OPO space, and and it's exciting now to see this prototype that's actually it's complete, it's made, it's in the States, and I think once he releases that, it's going to just create so much more excitement for his next offering. The second company is Gulfboard. Gulfboard is a company that took advantage of that small to select OPO progression. So this is an alternative golf cart, if you will. It's basically a fun electric skateboard that you use to surf around the golf course while you play. It makes the round more fun. You play around in a much more timely manner. So they came to us, and this company had been in existence actually for a couple years. So they had some revenues. They've been around the block, and they were then looking to raise $1 million to build more boards and put these get these boards on more golf courses across the United States. So they came to us and they set a pre-money valuation of $8 million, and they offered a $125 minimum investment. Their average investment, though, as you see, was $1,500, so much higher than the minimum amount. And what we typically see is that the average investment will be 3 to 4 times whatever you set the minimum amount to be. So that's just a general rule of thumb. Obviously, this one was a little bit of an outlier because their average was much higher than that, but just to give you guys a sense of what you can expect. They ran a 60-day campaign, and at the end of their campaign, they were oversubscribed, and they had a total of $1.4 million raised in the small OPO offering. As you all know, you can only close in $1 million. So what we did is we analyzed the investors, and we noticed that just in the oversubscribed amount of $400,000, there were about $250,000 to $300,000 that came from accredited investors. So we said, well, why don't you guys open up a select OPO and take those oversubscribed investors and try to move them into a select OPO offering? And that's exactly what they did. So they opened up the select, which is only available to accrediteds. They took those investors that were oversubscribed, they moved them into a select OPO, and then on top of that, they ended up raising an additional $300,000. So they ended up raising $600K through the select OPO, $1 million from the small OPO, and in total, they raised $1.6 million through the 2 raises. So this is something that you guys can definitely do and take advantage of, and it allows you to raise more than $1 million without having to get into the large OPO rule and incur those significant upfront costs and that timeline that it takes to get going. So Gulfport's a perfect example of that. And they were also a full service company, meaning that they did StartEngine Premium. I was the one as well that was working with John Wildman, the CEO of Gulfport, and we worked very, very closely together throughout the entire offering. Talking on weekends. He would call me all the time. It was fun though, because it was exciting to see the results that he was getting. So just another example though of a company that really needed the support of StartEngine. We were able to provide that support for him, build the page, help him through this entire process when it comes to marketing, servicing, whatever he needed. And I'm sure that he can attest to how helpful that was for him in being successful here. So I think it's important for everyone to understand some of the advantages and possible disadvantages that come from raising capital through these exemptions. I'm going to start with the possible disadvantages. So first, what you should be aware of is that your financials will be public information. So top line financials, short-term liabilities, long-term liabilities, assets, revenues, all of that information will be public and available for everybody to see. For some entrepreneurs, that's a deal killer right there. For others, they don't really seem to mind, but it is a part of this, and that's very, very key to realize. And it will continue to be public information after the raise as well, because as you see, the last point there is that you will have reporting obligations after this raise as well. You're in no way considered a public company after the raise. You're actually still considered a private company, but you do have to report on your financials and any pertinent updates of the business either once per year if you're doing the small OPO rule, or twice per year if you're doing the large OPO rule. So it doesn't stop when you stop raising funds. You will continually need to post those filings on your website and with the SEC so that your investors can have access to that information. And then lastly, these types of offerings do take focus, strategy, and hard work. It's not an easy thing to do. Like I mentioned earlier, there's marketing involved in this, but if you're able to successfully raise funds using these exemptions, this is probably the most effective and effective way for you to do this for some of the reasons that are listed under the advantages side. The first one being is that you as an entrepreneur gets to set your own terms for the raise. So typically when you go out to raise money, it's the people with the money that set the terms on you. But that's not the case in our space, because you go to the public with terms that you're comfortable with. So you're not selling off any piece of the company you're uncomfortable with, you're not losing board seats. Typically what companies will do if they're going to do an equity type of raise is they'll just offer common stock. Sometimes it'll be voting, sometimes it'll be non-voting. They'll determine the valuations themselves, and then it's up for the general public to determine whether or not they think those terms are fair. For example, Storm Saunders with the electric car, he said a $33 million pre-money valuation. A lot of people, especially accredited investors and VCs and institutions, will look at that and just laugh at that number. But the general public thought that was more than fair, and he was able to raise the full $1 million and oversubscribe on those terms. So that's probably the biggest advantage of raising capital from the space, is that you will set your own terms. Number two is that all of the investors that you bring in during the campaign, what you're doing is you're building an army of brand ambassadors. These are people that are going to be inclined to talk about your company, tell their friends, their communities, their networks about all the great things that you're doing, because they're investors in your business. And if you build a strong relationship with these people, they can almost act as a mini marketing department, if you will. So if you have some new product release or some new exciting announcement that you want to get out, you can tell your shareholders, hey guys, tell all your friends and your families about this exciting new thing that we got going on. And then you'll see that these people are happy to spread that information on your behalf. Third is a successful raise in this space accomplishes multiple things at the same time. Number one, you'll raise the capital that you need for your business. Number two is that you're going to be marketing your company, so your brand equity will be increasing at the same time. And then third is that if you can increase your sales at the same time by offering perks in the campaign, similar to a Kickstarter or Indiegogo campaign. So obviously, let's say the minimum investment is $500. If you invest $500, you get the shares in the business. If you invest $1,000, not only do you get the shares, but you also get the product or the service or the good, whatever it might be. And so we've seen that a lot of companies in our platform have taken advantage of this. Highleet is a perfect example. They were an athletic apparel company on our platform. And what their perk was is that for any investment made, all those investors received 50% off of Highleet apparel for the rest of their lives. And so they just saw that their sales numbers and their customers increased and jumped through the roof after offering this perk. And so not only did they raise $1 million, they got tons of new companies, they made tons of new sales. And so it was a really, really great thing all around for the Highleet team. Lastly is you can continue raising consistently through these rules. As I mentioned, you can raise up to $1 million or up to $50 million every 12 months. So you can keep coming back and using that same legislation every 12 months. You can also just keep going from a small OPO to a select OPO to a large OPO, back to a small, you just continually raising from the general public over and over again, as obviously you'll need to raise more funds as the company continues to grow and expand. And these legislations allow you to do that very, very effectively. So now the marketing. So as I mentioned, marketing is a big part of this in order to be successful. StartEngine cannot market your raise externally to the public. We're not a broker dealer, and that means that we can't solicit outside investors on behalf of the company. So that responsibility does fall onto either your shoulders or some hired agency that you can work with that can help you do this work for you. So on the left-hand side here, I have a bunch of different types of marketing strategies that companies have used in being successful. So email marketing, probably the top two strategies are email marketing and paid media. That's what we've really seen to work very effectively for companies. So email marketing, Saunders is a perfect example of doing this effectively. He obviously had his community from the bike company, and so what he did is he marketed this raise to that bike community. And said, hey, you guys have seen me do this in the past with the bike. You've supported me throughout. You're loyal. You love the bikes. Now you can get into my company to build the most attractive, affordable electric car. And he sent multiple emails, about 2 to 3 emails a week, notifying and reminding these people about the investment opportunity. During the last 12 days of the campaign, he hit these people every single day and saw that his campaign surged from about $600K to over $1 million during the last 12 days alone. So email, marketing, email campaigns can be very effective. Paid media, Rayton Solar is a company that has used paid media very effectively. And I'm going to combine paid media with the last point here, influencer marketing. So if you see for influencer marketing, Rayton Solar, that's their campaign there. They were able to get Bill Nye the Science Guy to be their front man for all of these ads and in their video. Not an easy thing to do, it will cost a little bit of money, but if you're able to do that, it can bring tons of recognition to the company, some validity to the company as well, and it resonates with the general public. So running ads on Facebook and other channels similar to that doesn't always work, but we've seen it to be very successful for several companies. Rayton Solar is a great example because they came to us with no community at all. They're a B2B business, and a lot of people would think that they're probably not a great fit for equity crowdfunding, but they've proven that they are a great fit. They've run great and effective ads. They have a really strong mission that resonates with the public. I think one of the things when people ask me is, how do you know that my company is going to be successful, or is a B2B company going to be successful, or a service company going to be successful? What really determines success in this space is setting or having a mission that resonates with the general public. Because what we've seen is that the general public invests in these offerings because they're passionate about the project. They believe in what you're doing. They want to help you achieve what you're doing. And that's ultimately what their main motive is in investing in your company. Obviously, getting a financial return is a part of that decision, but it's not the main driver when it comes to the general public, like it is for accredited investors or institutions. All they think about is how and when they're going to get a return on their investment. That's a part of the decision-making process for the public, but the main driver is having something that a mission that resonates with them and gets them very excited. And so that's something that you definitely want to think about if you're going to be getting into this space. So running contests, offering perks, like I mentioned before, those can be very effective strategies. Press as well, can be very hit or miss. Gulfport is a company that was really able to take advantage of press and running PR. They got articles in NASDAQ and equities.com. Saunders had an article in TechCrunch. So that obviously will bring more traffic, more validity, and excitement to the campaign, and is highly recommended. Now, regarding the marketing, a lot of people have asked me, how much should I budget, or what should I expect the cost to be for marketing? And my answer to that question normally is, well, you actually don't need to have any marketing budget set up front for your campaign, because StartEngine allows for rolling closes in our offerings. And what I mean by that is you will set a minimum target and a maximum target for your raise. And as soon as you surpass your minimum target amount, then you can begin to close on capital as you continue to raise. So as long as you can get to your minimum target using your current community that you already own and StartEngine's existing community, then you don't need to have any budget set up front for marketing. And all of your marketing budget can actually come from the raise itself and sweeping these funds and then allocating that money towards marketing. So that's what a lot of the companies have done on StartEngine. Xcraft is a perfect example of that. It's a drone company that spent $0 in marketing up front and ended up raising $1 million for their campaign. And they did so by closing consistently throughout the campaign and allocating those funds towards marketing to drive more traffic and more investments. And I think that's a really smart strategy to employ if you are going to get in this. You can obviously put a marketing budget up front if you'd like, and your consultant and StartEngine Premium can help you allocate maybe where to put that money to test things. But what we've really seen is to use the money that's been coming in to help fund additional marketing for the campaign. So getting started with StartEngine is really simple. It's actually just 3 easy steps. The first one is to go to the website, startengine.com. The second one is to create an account. So when you get there, you create your own account on StartEngine. And the third step is, after you have created your account and confirmed your email, you click on Raise Capital. And once you click Raise Capital, you get brought to this onboarding section. So this is the back end of our platform, and this is the onboarding that all companies must complete in order to go live with their campaign. As you can see at the top, there are about 8 tabs or so, basics through financial. And our platform is designed in a way that once you complete all of those tabs, we pull all of the information from those tabs and create your offering document or the Form C for the small OPO raises. So you actually don't need to create an offline Form C or have your attorney create an offline Form C. You can do everything directly in the platform. And if you do everything accurately and correctly, then your Form C will be created for you by StartEngine once you've completed all these tabs. So it's a really, really great design, and I'm not sure that other platforms out there are built like this, but we really simplified this process so that you just need to go in and complete those tabs, and once you're done with those tabs, then you'll be able to launch your campaign on StartEngine and start raising capital from the public. Now, for the companies that are StartEngine Premium, what StartEngine will do for you is we'll do the basics through the timeline tab. So the first 5 tabs, and that's how we build your campaign page for you. We'll take over that responsibility and do that for you. And then your consultant will be able to help you manage the terms, legal, and financial tabs. Again, we cannot fill those out for you, but we can help you through those tabs, or we can help your attorney or your CPA through those tabs so that they can get everything complete. And so that consultant will be available there to help you through all of that stuff. And so once you've completed those tabs, you'll hit the submit button right there. And then once you hit the submit button, our due diligence team will review your offering to make sure that everything is compliant and there's nothing missing. And once you then pass through due diligence, at that point, we then file your Form C with the SEC. And once it's filed, then you can start raising capital. So that gives you a little bit of an idea on the back end, what it looks like and how you can start working through things to get your offering live on StartEngine. So again, the premium StartEngine premium service, it is a $5,000 upfront fee. And as I mentioned to you previously, the 2 main selling points in my eyes are, number one, us building that campaign page on behalf of your company. We'll be working directly with you on that, meaning that we'll be interviewing you, getting your key themes and messages that you want to get across. You'll be supplying us with any assets that you currently have on the business, and then we'll take all that information and we'll put together the page for you. And then we'll share drafts with you. You can make comments and revisions. And so that's a very, very valuable service right there. And then the second part, as I mentioned, are those consultants and having those point people that you can go to throughout the entire campaign. I can't tell you how many different times things will pop up during the campaign and you might not be sure on what you should be doing, or I want to disperse money, how does that process work? Or this investor left this comment, how do I respond? There's so many different things that will come up that you just need that person that you can contact at any time to get an answer for you. And that's where that service really is valuable to me in my eyes. And I've seen it be very valuable for the entrepreneurs as well. In addition, we've seen that premium companies on average are raising $323,000 more than those who go at it alone. So by engaging StartEngine in this premium way, you're really going to be putting your best foot forward and giving yourself the best chance to be successful in the campaign. So again, here are some examples of some of the premium companies that have come through StartEngine. This is just a handful. There's several others, but Hilete, Elliptigo, Green Sense Farms, Saunders. You see the raise amounts that they had for their campaigns. So we've done this for so many different types of companies. We really know what works, what doesn't work, and we're here to help you guys through this and hope that you guys can find the success that these companies have as well. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Now is the time that if you do have those questions, we'll be able to go through those questions and answer them for you. I hope that you guys shared some of those already. If you haven't, feel free to add those questions now and I'll address those for you all at the moment. So first question is, how do we learn about investor status? What are the limits of investment by an individual? So for the small OPO rule, it's all self-verified. So when the investor goes to the investment page, they input how much they want to invest. If they input, let's say, $50,000, then that automatically qualifies them as an accredited investor based on the investment limits that I'll just explain to you in a second. And then if they're an accredited investor, they'll have to self-verify that they are. Meaning that they have over $1 million in assets. and they've been earning over $250,000 on consecutive years. That's what qualifies them as accredited. So if they're accredited, then they can invest as much as $100,000 in the small OPO rule. If they're accredited and you do the large OPO rule, they can invest as much money as they want. The non-accredited investors, which are going to be the majority of investors in the campaign, they do have limitations. So for the large OPO rule, they can invest 10% of their annual income or net worth, whichever is greater. And for the small OPO rule, it's 5% of their annual income or net worth, whichever is greater. So they can't invest any more than that. So the SEC has put these protections in place to protect the non-accredited investors from losing too much money, as obviously these are very risky investments in these early startup companies. So generally speaking, does 70% of the raise come from direct connections from the company? Is that what Josh meant by you must market the offering externally? Yeah, so again, and then what tactics have been used. So I think I addressed the second part of the question of what tactics have been used later on in the presentation, as I'm sure you saw, email marketing, paid advertising, PR, influencer marketing, all those are great strategies. That's what we see on average, is that, 30% of the investors in your offering will come from StartEngine, and 70% will come either from the company's existing community or a new community that you acquire through this marketing. Again, that's on average. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, but that's what we're seeing right now on the platform. Can we engage a CPA, or does it have to be done through StartEngine? No, you can engage your own CPA. It does need to be an independent CPA, so the CPA can't work for the firm itself, but if you have somebody that you want to use, you can certainly use them. Can you talk more about the legal review? We have an attorney. How do I know if he can review it, or if it's required that someone else review? So your attorney can review and can also help you complete everything. You're most likely going to want to have a security attorney help you through this, especially one that has experience in these crowdfunding exemptions. So if it's, if it's not a security attorney, they may not be familiar with what you're doing. So we have recommendations if you need it. If you have your own guy or girl, no problem at all. Can we mention in our story page other amounts that we have raised offline before StartEngine? I'm concerned that setting the max at 107,000 makes us look smaller than we are. Yes, you certainly can, and you'll actually have to. That's part of the legal disclosures, is that you'll have to talk about what else you've raised to date. So that information will definitely be available. Legally, can your logo be included in our marketing? Yes, you can certainly include StartEngine's logo in your marketing efforts externally. Are there chargeback concerns with credit card investments? Yes, there are chargeback concerns with credit card investments. In fact, per chargeback, the company, meaning AKA you guys, would be responsible for a $25 fee for any chargebacks. Now, we try to limit the amount of chargebacks and we have a process that does limit these. I'm not going to get into too much detail right now because it is a somewhat complicated process, but it has to deal with investors not being able to cancel loan investments 48 hours before a sweep of funds or 48 hours before the offering closes. So we do have a system in place to help limit chargebacks, but that is something that does happen with credit card investments from time to time. Not that often, but we have seen it for sure. In regards to the small OPOs, just to test the waters, I'm a bit worried about managing the investors in the cap table and what that can mean. What are you expected is mandatory to do? So first off, there is no test the waters available in small OPOs. It's only available in the large OPOs, so you cannot test the waters into a small OPO. That's not permitted. Regarding the cap table, all of these investors do appear on the cap table, so that's something that you should definitely be aware of. Now, it really comes down to the rights that these shareholders have. So that's ultimately what is, the concern. And if you're worried about giving voting rights to 1,000 people, that's a valid concern. But we have a service called StartEngine Secure, which is our registered transfer agent that will be able to manage the cap table, meaning that we're going to be able to have all of the records. We're going to know who owns what. We're going to be able to disseminate information to these investors should you need to do that. We'll be able to handle dividends if there are dividend payments. That's what StartEngine Secure provides. The fee is $3 per investor. That's the cost for StartEngine Secure. And it also provides a safe harbor for any potential lost records that may occur. So that responsibility comes off of your shoulders and falls on StartEngine Secure. So we provide that safe harbor to the entrepreneurs themselves. So StartEngine Secure will definitely help you manage the investors. We honestly have not seen a situation where an investor or an entrepreneur comes to us and says, Josh, the number of shareholders that I have are driving me crazy. It's been too much. It's actually quite the opposite. What they're saying is that they're loving the feedback regarding some of the investors. It's a very, very small percentage of them that are actually communicating with the company. And if they are communicating, they're communicating because they maybe they want their perk that they didn't get for whatever reason, or they want to have some information that they can share with other people regarding the company. So they're really those acting as brand ambassadors, as we've seen, as opposed to investors who are going to be driving you crazy. What do the reporting obligations entail? Is there somewhere to read more about them? So as I mentioned to you, it's one report per year for the small OPO rule. It's basically just almost like your Form C, but just with updated information. So updated financial information and any new things regarding the business. And then for the large OPO, it's the Form 1A that you use to file. And it is just, again, the updated information that everybody should have. If you are about to file a 506C in a matter of days, how does that affect your current OPO? So you can have a 506C going and a small or large OPO going at the same time, so it doesn't affect it. If you're going to be doing those two things separately, it might cause a little bit of confusion, but if your 506C is very private and your OPOs are public, then you should be okay. We've typically seen that companies on our platform will do a small OPO first and then their 506C immediately afterwards, but it will not affect the raise at all, so you should be fine there. Our company is a SaaS with a mobile app. Our concern is that software and app companies aren't as attractive to crowdfunding investors. What do you think? So again, that really goes back to having a mission and a purpose that will resonate with the general public. That's ultimately what determines success. So if you're a SaaS company or you're a mobile app, if there is a great cause of why you're doing this, so what's the purpose behind this? What issue are you solving? What problem are you solving? Why would the general public care? That's what they want to hear about, and that's why they're going to ultimately invest. So whether you're a B2C, B2B, SaaS, app, whatever it is, it's about that big mission that you need to sell to the general public, and that is going to determine whether or not your offering is successful. Just so I understand it correctly, we can set the min or max at $107,000 without financial review. I want to submit tomorrow so I don't lose momentum. Awesome. I love that you want to submit tomorrow. That's great. If your maximum is $107,000, then you don't need to have a financial review. It's not the minimum. So if your maximum is 107, then only the principal of the business needs to verify the financials. So you'll still have financials in there, but you're not going to have an independent CPA do an official review of those financials. So I just want to make sure that's very clear. If your maximum is over $107,000, then you need to have an independent CPA provide that financial review. So your minimum, let's say it's $10,000, your maximum is $107,000, self-verified financial review. Minimum is $10,000, maximum is $108,000, then it's an independent CPA review of those financials. So yeah, so I think those are all the deck. So we have everybody that RSVP'd, yes, we'll actually be sending this deck to you so that you have that for your own records and can always refer to it. If you're also interested in StartEngine Premium, feel free to reach out to us. We can get you set up with that. Or if you want to get going with Standard, feel free to get started today. So again, thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of the day.